Good afternoon. My name is Hani Bushra. I'm an immigration attorney based in Huntington Beach, California. Today is January 21st, 2025. This is a short video to discuss the executive orders that were signed by President Trump yesterday regarding immigration. This is a preliminary reading of these executive orders. It's not an in-depth analysis. It's going to take us some time as attorneys to sort of understand the ramifications or the consequences of some of these orders. Before I start discussing the orders that were signed, I want to clarify what are executive orders and what exactly they mean, and how far can they go and how they can impact or change laws or policies. So an executive order is an order that's done by the president, the executive branch of the United States, of the government of the United States, where the executive or the president sort of gives an outline or a way for how the law is implemented or is put into real practice. We know that, for example, when Congress passes a law, it usually passes it in a broad way, and then it's left to the executive or the president to go ahead and put ways to implement the law and make it into a practical thing that could be used every day. And so executive orders are not necessarily new laws. They're not even new policies. They're not even new regulations, but they are ways to implement some of these of the law. As usual, as with a lot of other presidents, but especially with President Trump, a lot of the executive orders that he signs are usually sometimes beyond the scope of the power of the presidency. And that's why some of his executive orders in the first term were fought in courts, and the courts have said that some of those executive orders were not correct, and they had exceeded his authority, and therefore they struck them down. So some of these executive orders as of today is, like I said, the 21st. It's already 2 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. There has been lawsuits already been filed against some of those executive orders. Some of these executive orders are going to be fought in court, but until we get a clear understanding of what is standing, what's not standing, and what it means, I just wanted to give you a quick background. Before we start anything, I also want to know that in addition to executive orders that were signed, there has been also a move to eliminate a lot of the leadership of the immigration agencies that had existed during at the time of President Biden. So today, for example, the 4 heads of the immigration courts in the United States were removed from their positions. They were replaced by an immigration judge that was in Atlanta, a very tough immigration judge who's also known to be quite unsympathetic to immigration. And so this is sort of kind of gives you an indication of where we're going and the kind of the attitude that's going to be in the leadership of the judges that's coming up. Now, the first executive order that was signed yesterday was to declare that there is a national emergency on the borders. Now, why is it important to have such an executive order? It's important to have that executive order because it then gives the ability for the president to say that I am going to need resources to combat the issue or the problems that I have on the borders. And how do I get the resources? I can dip into things like the Department of Defense, okay, and ask for the army or the military to get involved. Without declaring that there is an emergency, he cannot go ahead and ask for the help of the army or the military to go ahead and enforce immigration law. Now, the thing is, you have to understand is that as he's saying, I am invoking the emergency and I want to start using the Department of Defense, there are other laws that could stop him from doing that. We have the Comity Posse Act, which is basically an act that was signed after the Civil War that simply says that the army should not, or the military should not be involved in civilian affairs. And so that could cause a problem for President Trump as he is wanting to use the military for some of the immigration actions that he wants to take. Okay. Now, he also, in addition to that, signed an executive order to clarify that what's the role of the military expect. And in it, he made it clear that he's expecting that the military is protecting the sovereignty of the United States. And he said that, and this is tied to another executive order that he signed, he's saying that there is an invasion that's going on from the southern borders, and that invasion requires that we use our military, okay, to go ahead and protect ourselves from the invasion. Of course, the word invasion is used here sort of to bring into to make us think that there is a war going on and there's a foreign force that's against us. And so I don't know how much the courts will buy of the interpretation of the word invasion or stretching of the word invasion, because these are definitely not people who are coordinating coming to the United States or attacking the United States. They are people who are trying to come into the United States. And so that's something that's separate that can be discussed later on. Okay, the fourth or the third in this case executive order, I lost count, but there's a total of 10 that was signed. But the next executive order that was signed is the one that suspends the United States Refugee Admissions Program, which is basically if you are a refugee that's registered with the UNHCR, the High Commission for Human Rights in the UN High Commission for Human Rights. You're overseas, you're waiting for your turn to come to the United States to be resettled in the United States. That would suspend that program, and that's going to start in January 27th, 2025. And basically, it says that we're going to suspend it for 90 days. It's going to require that we get a report on how we can vet the people who are coming in. Forget, that the fact that we already have vetted all of these people, and we have gone through a huge security clearance with these people, okay, who are coming to be, who are refugees and registered as refugees. But now there's going to be more vetting and perhaps even delaying it. Remember, in his first term, he reduced the refugee admissions to only 20,000. Right now it's up to 100,000 refugees, and these are people that include people like Afghans who have helped the United States in the United States military when they were in Afghanistan. And so there's going to be sadly, a lot of people who are going to be harmed because of these actions. Now, the next executive order is the one that you're probably going to be hearing the most about in the news, which is regarding birthright citizenship. Now, you have to understand that President cannot come back and say there's no birthright citizenship. What he can do is he's claiming that because I don't recognize that the law means that somebody who, for example, doesn't have any legal status here, a husband and a wife who have no legal status whatsoever, they give birth to a United States to a child born here in the United States. He says, I don't recognize as somebody who has a United States citizenship. So I am not gonna let my agencies, like the State Department or other agencies, to issue documents to that person as if he's a U.S. citizen. So, for example, we're not gonna issue a passport for that person. Okay, so he's directing anybody, and this is clarifying, just to clarify the dates, he's declaring that any child that was born after the date of February 20th, 2025, which is a month from now, and that child does not have one parent who is at least a green card holder or a U.S. citizen, okay? If one of the parents is not one of those, that child is not going to be able to get documents from the executive branch of the government to prove that he is a U.S. citizen or she is a U.S. citizen. So she's not going to be able to get a passport, for example. She's not going to be able, it's not clear whether it's also not going to be able to get a social security number or not, but at least for now, it's not going to be clear that they're going to get a passport. Now, as you probably know, by the time you're watching this, you probably have heard that already 18 states have already sued for the Trump administration, saying that he's exceeding his authority and something like that, and he cannot do that because the law is very clear about who is a U.S. citizen, and children born in the United States, regardless of the parents' status, are considered to be U.S. citizens. Again, just my reminder, this impacts children born after February 20th, 2025. If you have a child that was born before that, okay, it does not impact them. It also, just to clarify also, means that if, for example, you and your wife are on TPS, or for example, you and your wife are on an F1 visa, or you are on H1B visa and your wife is on H4 visa, okay? If you are in any other status other than being a green card holder or U.S. citizen, and you have a child here after February of 2025, that child, in the eyes of the Trump administration, is not a U.S. citizen, and they're not going to be able to get documents to prove that they are U.S. citizens unless the lawsuits that are being filed by the 18 states are stop the Trump administration from implementing this. The next executive order that we have is executive order that basically says we are going to stop dating into this country. And how does that happen? He's revoking all the enforcement priorities of the Biden administration. When the Biden administration came into power, they issued a couple of memos saying that there is priorities for who we want to remove. We want to remove first the criminals. We want to remove people who are a threat to national securities. But if we have somebody who is, for example, removable, who should be removed, but for example, they have no criminal records, they have ties to the community, they've been here for years, they haven't caused any problems, they have a stable job, stuff like that, okay, then we are not going to be focusing on them. All that is gone. Right now, anybody is fair game to be removed. It also includes that there is no sensitive areas that cannot be attacked by ICE or by immigration agents. So during the Biden administration, there are certain sensitive areas, for example, hospitals, schools, places of worship. All of these were areas or were locations where ICE would not conduct immigration enforcement actions, but all of that is gone completely, okay? And at this point, the Trump administration is saying that everybody is fair game. Now, does that mean that we're going to see raids all over the place? We might see a couple of raids, just for the media, but reality speaking is that the focus is still going to be on criminals, because the criminals are the ones who have contact with the legal system, and ICE can get them easily or get after them. There's going to people who are going to get hurt in the middle of that, but I think the reality is that until now we're going to have criminals. The focus is going to be on criminals. One of the other problems in that executive order is that there's language in there that says no work permit is going to be given to people, okay, unless they are authorized to stay in the United States. And that is a little bit, I don't know what the meaning of that means yet. This is one of the phrases that we don't understand. What does it mean that we're not going to issue a work permit for people who are not authorized to stay in the United States? Now, for example, if you have a pending asylum application, lets you stay in the United States, but doesn't authorize your stay in the United States. So there's a difference between the wording. So is he saying that people with pending asylum applications are not going to be able to get work permits? Again, we don't know clearly what he means or what the executive order means, but it's something to be also kind of worried about and to notice for, or to keep an eye on for the next time. The next thing that was mentioned was to designate certain cartels and foreign gangs as terrorist organizations. That could have an impact on people who came from the southern borders, because if you are somebody who was forced to give money to gangs on your way to come here to the United States or to the cartel so you can get safe passage, even if you were forced against your will, you were threatened and all of that, that could impact your ability to ask for asylum or seek asylum. And so based on that, there could be also some consequences of designating these gangs and these cartel as foreign terrorist organizations, FTOs. Okay. Again, we have to wait and see how much of that's going to be, because there's 14 days to name some of these gangs and some of these cartels. Is it going to be very broad? Is it going to be specific cartels and specific that? But we're going to see that. There's also an executive order that basically says we need to review all the visa issuance guidance regarding security and background checks. We want to make sure that we are working with countries that give us information about the people who are applying for our visas. And it looks like it's a beginning or the precursor of a new ban that's going to be like the Muslim ban 1.0 that was in the first Trump administration. It looks like they're setting up the field where they're going to make getting visas hard at embassies, and there's going to be some bans towards certain people from certain countries who don't cooperate with the United States in giving them security information. Okay. The other one that we have, or executive order that we have, is the executive order protecting the states against invasion. Okay. And it's basically that because we think there's an invasion going on at the southern border, what's going to happen is that anybody who's coming right now through the southern border who asks for asylum, and by law, once you ask for asylum, we cannot return you, but because it's an invasion, it's a war, I am authorizing the government, okay, or the military or the agents to physically remove them and put them back, which is against our agreements. Okay, our international agreements. And this has been litigated before, and the Trump administration has lost. But right now he's re-signing the law that basically says there is an invasion going on in the southern border. Okay, and basically even if somebody asks for asylum saying that I'm scared to go back to my country, even if there's proof that this person is going to be tortured or harmed or anything like that, we are going to take them back to Mexico or remove them back to Mexico without giving them a chance to apply for asylum. Now, again, this is a law, or sorry, an executive order that is being fought right now in courts. And my gut feeling is that it's also going to be struck down that as too broad, because it's beyond the scope of the executive to interpret the law. It's basically saying I'm suspending the use of asylum law, which is something that they cannot do. Okay, so this is just a quick rundown of the executive orders that we've had so far. Again, we might be getting more executive orders. We're definitely getting different interpretation of what it means and how it's going to apply. This is still early. This is going to be a long 4 years. Please stay tuned with our channel. Subscribe to our channel. We post videos all the time in different languages, in Arabic, Turkish, and English. So I wish you the best. I wish you to be safe. Let us know if we can be of service to you. Thank you so much.